2, David Bennett.
My question is...
We've dealt with that question. Number 2,
Mr.
David.
Speaker, my question is to the Minister of Finance. What are some of the likely impacts on the government's finances of the Christchurch earthquake?
The Honourable Bill English.
Mr. Speaker, well, first of all, we have to get, as the weeks go by, we're getting better information about the costs of the earthquake, but a couple of things are clear already. The first is that the earthquake is likely to delay slightly the New Zealand government's return to budget surplus. And secondly, that meeting the government share of the immediate earthquake costs will require quite a substantial front-loading of Crown debt in the next year or two. That is, to meet the costs such as the wage support package, the rescue and recovery costs, transitional housing, means the government will have to borrow more over the next couple of years. It's important, therefore, that we put in place a plan to get our debt back to acceptable levels.
David Bennett.
Supplementary question to the Minister of Finance. What will be the impact on likely fiscal deficits and net Crown debt as the government meets the immediate costs of the earthquake?
The Honourable Bill English.
Well, Mr. Speaker, when the Prime Minister delivered his Prime Minister's speech earlier in the year, he said the government intended to get back to budget surplus in 2014-15. Now, with the effect of the earthquake on and the need to borrow to fund those costs, the surplus is now more likely to occur in 2015-16. It looks as if our deficit before gains and losses could be more than 8% of GDP, which amounts to around $16 billion. In December, we announced a revised forecast of $11 billion, so it's likely to increase. And net Crown debt is likely to also rise from around 28% forecast for 2014 to around 30% of GDP.
The Honourable David Cunliffe.
To the Minister, what percentage of the additional expected $4.9 billion increase above forecast in the operating deficit before gains and losses for this year is a result of the stalled economy, which New Zealand was suffering since as early as June 2010, well before the earthquake hit Canterbury?
The Honourable Bill English.
Well, Mr. Speaker, I couldn't give the member an estimate of the exact proportion, but a significant proportion of the increased deficit this year will just be the immediate cash costs of the earthquake. Some of it will be reduced tax revenue because of the stall in economic activity in Christchurch, and some of it, who knows, maybe a quarter or a third, could be because of a slower economy that was happening regardless of the earthquake.
David Bennett.
Supplementary question to the Minister of Finance. What will be the basis of decisions about the government paying its share of earthquake costs and ensuring net Crown debt returns to pre-earthquake levels?
The Honourable Bill English.
Well, Mr. Speaker, the government will continue with its considered and consistent way of making decisions on economic issues. The government has made the decision that because it's impractical to find short-term, large-scale savings in public spending, we will be borrowing to cover the costs of the earthquake. Any other changes we make in government spending will be made on their merits rather than just because we need to fund the earthquake.
Speaker. The Honourable John Biscoe.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Supplementary to the Minister of Finance. Does he think that revenue raised from mining Schedule 4 land would mitigate the financial effects of the Christchurch earthquake? And if so, what actions will the government take to explore mining on Schedule 4 land?
The Honourable Bill English.
Well, Mr. Speaker, the government has explored that option. There's no doubt, though, that the effort that's been put into getting petroleum and gas resources on the list for exploration companies could yield more revenue in the future, and that would help us repay the debt that we're going to incur in the next year or two on the Christchurch reconstruction.
The Honourable John Biscoe.
Supplementary to the Minister. Does he think that the comments of the Minister for Energy and Resources on the 26th of August 2009 that no mining on Schedule 4 land had potentially, quote, denied significant opportunity for economic benefit at both a national and regional level, close quote, are more relevant now that the economy is struggling with the effects of the Christchurch earthquake?
The Honourable Bill English.
Well, Mr Speaker, it's not the government's intention to revisit the conclusion of the debate around Schedule 4, but that doesn't mean we can't have a strong and growing economy in the future. In fact, in the regions, high commodity prices will begin spilling over into the domestic economy in the next 12 or 18 months, and despite the fact that they can't mine Schedule 4 land, I think that part of the economy will start growing with some strength.
Question number 3, the Honourable David Parker.